We did do some research with UJ, which is on our website in 2012, where basically we commissioned UJ from day one. We started this program in July 2011, and I commissioned Professor Patel from UJ and her team, and they did research over a one-year period, specifically looking at a whole group of our schools. And they looked at things like body mass index, time of attendance, nutrition. They did all the nutrition measurements and the weights and all that stuff that the nutritionists do. And if you're interested, it's on the website, but it's and the whole report's there. It's some really interesting reading. And just some of the stuff that came out, besides all the data, but in some of the focus groups. I mean, for a child to say, my friends used to call me skeleton, now I can play and I'm strong because I eat breakfast every day. I can listen in class now because I'm not worried what time lunch will be served. From the educator's perspective, they're happy the kids are attentive, they say it's reduced absenteeism, they can see a difference in the children's health, and obviously the kitchens have not only empowered the school, but it's an investment in the whole community. But for those of you that have got the time, it's a really interesting document to read. It's about 70 pages, but it's got some really, really interesting stuff. Just our partners, so basically we work with DBE, we work with Agricultural Health and Social Development, we work with our schools. We are working with the community agencies in those communities where we have a presence. We obviously work with Tiger because they're our donor, and we're now starting to work with other CSI donors and other partners where other CSI departments have come to us and said, we have to spend money in a certain geographical area because of our CSI. Could we replicate your model? And I've been categoric in every public forum I can find to say, this is not our model. We don't own it. We don't own school feeding. We never will. But this is the way we've done it. And if you want it, there's all the standard operating procedures. You can gladly do it. Because we will never have enough budget to feed the 2 million learners that are on the government program. All right, getting into the M&E. So basically, just flip through. Our biggest thing with M&E was that, like any donor, they want to see value, they want to see return on investment, they want to see impact. And even Tiger themselves were throwing all sorts of things at me about how we're going to measure the impact, how we're going to measure the success of this program. And it's been extremely difficult because it's an ever-changing goalpost. And now with the new BE codes, it's changing again. So one of the challenges is that for the NGO sector, you know, it's where do you find the time to actually do all this to make sure that you're up to speed? Because donors don't pay you for that. And even my own donor doesn't give me budget for it. So it's very difficult. And I think there's a mind shift in South Africa that consultants into the NGO sector or the education space are just there to make money. But I do believe that there's a very important role to play for consultants to help with things like this, because it's pointless all 200,000 NGOs all trying to get up to speed when there's consultants out there that have actually got the expertise that can fix it quite quickly. But it's to convince boards to spend money on consultants to help you, which is always the hard part. All right, so our monitoring is pretty straightforward. What it gives us is we clearly understand the impact of our in-school breakfast feeding program. We know what has hampered our success. We have a clear understanding of the National Schools Nutrition Program, which is the government lunch feeding scheme. We know where we need to improve. And we know how this data has been interpreted and how it's helped us shape our model and helped government shape their model. And the reason why I say us and government is basically it's all mobile driven, but it's pushed two ways. I get a report every morning via email, it's auto-populated. I know exactly how many kids were fed this morning across all 60 of those schools. That same report gets pushed to government. But we push it to government at 4 levels. National, provincial, district, province and district. And it's segmented appropriately. So basically, and it's up to them to obviously open that email and digest the report and do what they need to do with it. The reason why I also say government is that in our 60 schools, when we started this, within the first 6 months, the department said, this is fantastic, we love what you're doing, because we were raising issues that were impacting our program. And they said to us, please can you help us with the government lunch as well? So in those 60 schools, we monitor our breakfast, but we also monitor the National Schools Nutrition Program lunch program as well. Which I'll show you later on has opened another whole can of worms, which is going to be a great opportunity for further growth in this this space. So basically, our implementing partner is Engage, and Yomo, Jason was here, he's going to come back because he's had to go deal with the problem for me. But basically, there's a lot of platforms you can buy. There's a lot of off-the-shelf things you can buy. It's not brainwave stuff we put together. The challenge is to design it to give it what you want. And we spent a lot of time sitting down saying, what do we want out of this? And we're also very strict that we do not change our questionnaire and our research for a 6-month period so that we get clear data. Because Drew's Bob, you start and a week later the department phone says, can't we just change this question? No, because it's going to throw all my data. No, but surely you can just, no, it's not happening. So we only change the questionnaires every 6 months. And even then we try and keep it very minimal changes, because if you change it too drastically, the data just goes all over the place. So basically, globally we know that monitoring is important. There's a lot of inaccuracies as far as delays with paper-based data. This is real time. And basically that we've developed a technology that allows mobile monitoring and reporting solutions for us across our 60 schools, and because it's live and it's real time, it gives us a real live visibility of what's going on and what we need to deal with. Because as I said, if a child doesn't get fed this morning, we can't fix it tomorrow. If by 5 past 8 we haven't fixed that child, we haven't fed that child, we have failed. It's that simple. And we cannot go back and fix it. And we do have failures, we do have serious problems sometimes. It's all cloud-based, so basically what happens is we use very cheap Nokia phones. They're about 1,700 rand if you buy them off the shelf. As long as they're GPRS enabled and as long as they've got a camera. Because believe you me, if you give them a BlackBerry or give them a Samsung or an iPhone, they've been dropped in the porridge, they've been driven over, they've been dropped in the toilet, they've been dropped, they've been broken. You know, we go through phones like it's unbelievable. And we found the hardiest and the cheapest that works is a little cheap Nokia. And somehow it doesn't get stolen and broken and dropped in the toilet and dropped in the porridge. And so it's captured on the phone, it then gets managed via the web, and it's all web-based console. So I can access it on my desktop or my pad, and I can even access certain aspects of my phone as well.
Sorry, who actually captures the data?
I'll show you now.
Okay.
That's going on. So basically the mobile monitoring and reporting platform, the aim was to outline the data collection, reporting and analysis of solutions implemented by the foundation in our breakfast feeding program. The things we needed to look at was the procurement and distribution of our food, the storage of the food, how the food was prepared, the hygiene issues, and the actual feeding activities. So it's not just the feeding, it's all these other things as well. The solution for us was a real-time accurate flow of information from remote locations, the collection and analysis of this information, and the presentation of the information required in the format that the project needed from a project management perspective. And that's what's important. So as far as the availability of the analysis, the data is processed and exported via custom action, which is done through the phone. It's integrated and interactive, meaning that in our particular one of the breakfast feeding, there's 17 questions, and the lunch feeding, there's 21 questions. And if the person does not fill in question number 1, you can't go on to question number 2. Some of them are yes/no answers. Where possible, we use drop-down menus so that we don't have typos, and especially with SMS language, it's very interesting. And the funniest thing is when the department goes, but there's a spelling error here, and I go, yes, but the principal wrote this. So you can't, because you can't control what's put in. So where possible, we use drop-downs, we use yes/nos. Certain of our questions have to be answered with photographs, where they actually need to take a photograph and that gets embedded in the report as well. The phone's also GPRS enabled, so you cannot lie to me and be lying in your bed telling me that you're reporting. Because it's GPRS enabled, we can see you actually at the school, and we know you're at the school. And we know what time you got there, we know what time you started the report, we know what time you finished the report. And that's been probably our biggest godsend. Because for those of you who know that during monitoring evaluation in rural areas and when you're relying on youth and volunteers, it's another whole story. So the GPRS enabled really, really helps us. It also red flags us. If a particular school has not done a report by 8:05, I get an SMS. So this morning, 4 schools didn't do their reports. And I get an SMS which is auto-prompted to say, this school, that school, that school, that school has not done their report. The office then gets on the phone to phone them and say, why is your report not done? So what's great is that you don't wait 3 weeks to find out, oh, cool, we made a mistake 3 weeks ago. We know now why the report wasn't done. And it might be they didn't charge the phone, it's always the excuse, they dropped the phone, or they just haven't done the report yet. But it also proves to them that we're watching them. So if you're constantly nailing people daily, why haven't you done the report that was due 5 minutes ago? Don't speak to them tomorrow, speak to them now. It's top of mind. Then it keeps them, you're then molding the behavior, which is what we try to do. The data integrity, we were not getting even, because I've done it before, paper-based research and data, I don't care what anyone says, doesn't work. It's a nightmare. Not for this, it would never work for us for the data reporting we need. So basically we reduce the point of error, because it's all real time, it's validated and captured, and as I said, there's still spelling mistakes. Sometimes when we analyse the reports, there's certain schools that we're not getting the quality we want, and then when we have those trainings during the holidays, we sensitively deal with that issue. You know, the question was, were all the children fed? Or how many children were fed today? I don't know. Versus your neighbour who says 463. And then it's about training that person to understand why we need the data of 463, not just I don't know. So it's also about educating the people that are inputting the data. Because I think this mistake we all make is we say to people, we need this data. But unless they understand why and what is going to be done with that data, and you empower them, it's very disempowering because they get, it's like, oh God, something else I've got to do and it's a pain in my backside and I don't want to do it. So basically, our field workers, so what we do to answer your question is we employ out-of-school youth. We pay them a stipends as well, which comes out of our budget. So the youth are generally between the ages of 18 and 22. They must have a matric. They must come from that community. And in most cases, they actually went to that school. We pay them a stipends. They work from 7:30 to 11 every day. Sorry, from 7 to 11. And they've got to be at the school at 7 o'clock to make sure breakfast will be ready for 7:30. They do the breakfast report, they finish the breakfast report, and then they do the lunch report. And then at 11 they go home. So it's not a job. It's not going to solve the unemployment problems in our country. But we are giving 60 youth an opportunity that didn't have the opportunity. And we are very strict. We only give them a one-year commitment. And I tell them in December, you're starting in January. In December, I'm going to say thank you very much, goodbye, I don't want to see you again, I'm not employing you next year again. Because you need to move on, you need to make something of your life, and we're going to give somebody else the opportunity. So every year we get a new cohort of people, and we do some training with them to try and get them other work-based experience and other research work. But basically, the success of it is that you're not expecting the school to do the report, because the schools have already got enough work to do. You're getting an independent report. They come to the school independently, and they are paid by us as stipends. So theoretically, they work for us, which means that you're getting a little bit more of an objective viewpoint. Because obviously, if there's corruption in the school, the principal's going to say everything's fine. But if this person tells us everything's fine, then when we do spot checks and realize it's not fine, we deal with them and we train them as to doing the right reporting. So the field work management is very, very important. The phone also allows us to manage them. The phones stay at the school, they don't take them home, because otherwise they get stolen. So the phone lives at the school. When they get to the school, they pick up the phone, they log in. So I know Kelvin's logged in by your unique ID. I know you're at this school, and I know it's 6:55, so you're at work on time. And I know that you finished work at 11 o'clock. And then we will then pay them their stipends. We pay them monthly, but we calculate it daily. So if you don't pitch, you don't get paid. It's the only way you can work it, because if you do this mentality of, we pay you a stipends and we hope you come to do your work, there's always excuses that they're sick and they're dying and there's problems. So we pay them on performance, we don't pay them on time. And obviously, the great thing about the phones is that if for some other reason the network is congested or there's no network coverage at that particular time, the data sits on the phone. The minute there's connectivity, it uploads it into the cloud. and then it's connected. So if that phone doesn't have coverage at that particular time, it doesn't mean we lose the data. It just means the data will come through later. Like one of those 4 schools, the guy said, but I've done my report. We then realized that there's no connectivity in the area because, for whatever reason, the Vodacom's not working in that particular area today. It's integrated communication, which means that we also have the ability to send SMSs and tasks to that school. So in other words, we might, for argument's sake, there might be an issue in a particular area where we want an additional questionnaire answered. That will be sent to that school because that phone is allocated to that school. So each phone is allocated to a school with a unique ID. We know it works at that school only. So basically, focus on the respondent's confidentiality. Once a form is completed, it can be accessed again on the phone. So if they answer question 3 and they make a mistake and they're on question 4, they can't go back and redo question 3. So spelling mistake, sorry for you, that's the way it is. We've also set it up, we can't even change the data that comes through. Only the development company, I can go in and say, I need you to change that because there was a problem. So the data that we get and that the department gets is totally transparent. There's no changing or manipulating the data. And basically, it's optimized resource usage. So in other words, the field worker sits there with their phone, it works on a tower into the cloud. It then goes, we can access it via the web or via the office, and we have an administrator who can design questions and push specific questionnaires to specific schools, if we so need. So for argument's sake, if there's unrest in a certain area and schools are closed because of the unrest or because of no water in the area, then obviously we're not going to get a report from that school. Then we put into the system, this is why there was no issue. That's the management console, so it's all web-based, it's pretty straightforward. It tells us daily usage, numbers of questionnaires, the geo maps. It's drop-down menus on the phone back to the computer. It's all mobile application, I'm not going to read through all that, pretty straightforward. It's all cloud-based, that's basically the console system. The decision making, why we chose this particular system is that the great thing is that it's cost effective, there's no software licensing or subscription. So you pay for your development and you pay for the program, you're not paying per user. Obviously you're paying data per user. Your transactional billing is pay for what you need, optimized resources, data security is there, it's backed up in the cloud, plus they've got redundancy programs. It's scalable and supervision, we can design what we want. We can incorporate a multitude of questions and types of custom logic and validation. We can manage the communication with the field officers. We can monitor staff work rate, productivity and quality. We can generate reports and responses as they arrive, and we export data. So we designed the data we wanted and exactly what types of report we wanted. So we get a report per school, per district, per province, per area, and then nationally. So I can look at it nationally right down to that particular school. And I can drill into that school, to that particular question if I want to. So if at a particular school, like one school we have a problem that every day they're late, we pick that up. Our field workers complete the form as they need to, standard handset, and believe me, it's pretty easy. It's like SMSing. Minimal training required, no paper, simplified step-by-step process. Airtime usage is very, very small. I mean, at the moment, I'm spending, I think, 6,300 Rand a month on data for the whole program. It's minimal. We've also blocked the phones. They can't Skype, they can't Facebook, they can't make phone calls. That phone is like a piece of plastic. You can only use it for this program, and that is it. Because in the beginning, we learned our lesson very quickly. We also have a scale-up program that we're starting next year. By 2017, we have been given a project by the Department of Education, which has been funded by the Jobs Fund, where this program is going to be scaled up to 2,000 schools across the country. We'll continue feeding in our 60 schools, but the monitoring of government lunch is going to include an additional 2,000 schools across all 9 provinces, where we'll have these 2,000 youngsters using this technology to monitor the government lunch. And that for us is very exciting. It hasn't been publicly announced. It will be announced next the end of the month. We're only now finalising our contracts, but the grant agreement's been approved. And we're very excited about that independently we're going to be able to monitor the government lunch feeding program, but while creating opportunities for these youth and hopefully helping government address the issues. We also did a food parcel project every holidays. One of our biggest problems with this program is that the government feeding scheme only works every school day of the year. There's only 201 school days in the calendar year. Now these kids are used to a breakfast and a lunch. What happens during the holidays? Their bodies just go backwards. So for the last 3 years we have been doing food parcel programs where the children get a food parcel on break-up day. It's some basic foodstuffs that will hopefully help the family survive over the July and the December holidays. So we do it twice a year. We also use the system to do data analysis, where basically the field workers went to 5% of the beneficiaries and actually did home visits and did a whole questionnaire on the use of the food parcel and the environment where the families were coming from, etc., etc. And that was quite interesting, just to show that it's not limited to just what we're doing. You can design a number of programs. Just dashboards, pretty straightforward. Again, dashboards, the geo-mapping. And you see, if you click on that particular school, you can pull up the report and the photograph that was taken for that particular comment. But you can, and those are my schools in Alexander Township, so you can literally pick up exactly where they're working from, so to the point, so that they can't lie. We can segment it by pie charts and spreadsheets and whatever. So the data's, and we've done it that way so that it's easy to read. And then obviously it's segmented by school. So on that date, you can click on the school, you can see this was the date and time, they had jungle oats, and then the various questionnaires and the photographs are embedded. A typical photograph of, we asked them to take a photograph of the meal. So that was jungle oats, just so we can see the quality of the food that's being served. Is it too watery? Is it lumpy? What was the portion size? Are they only giving them that much on the plate when it should be a full plate full? Our challenges closing as a whole. Planning deliveries is always hard, because especially in the rural areas, where it rains, you have all sorts of weird and fun things. Stock security control is consistently a challenge. You've got to make sure your stock controls. The other problem we have with stock control is that we budget to feed every person in the school. However, we also know that every day there's absenteeism. The challenge is the food handlers cook for the whole school, because they start cooking at 6:30, 7:15. The children get to school at 7:20. We don't know how many kids are going to come to school today. So we do have a wastage problem, but we're starting to address that now. We're getting that down to about, I would say, thumbs like 3 to 4% wastage at the moment. Because you never know how many kids are going to be there. But based on the report, we now got, on the data, we've now got an average. We also know that Mondays we generally cook more because the kids eat more, because they are. We know that for a fact. Relationship management is an ongoing challenge.
Kevin, sorry, your cost per person, what's
At the moment, my cost, all-inclusive, everything, from head office right down to the child, I'm coming in at R2.90 per child per meal per day. That's everything.
So like R2 pay for breakfast and then R2 for lunch?
Government lunch is R2.86 at the moment, yeah man. R2.86 or R2.90, yeah. It's going up to R3 this year. But that's all our costs. The only cost it doesn't include is the kitchen, which is a capex cost. Relationship management is an ongoing problem, which we just keep on working in. You've got to get consistent buy-in from the different levels of government, your ongoing training. You have to visit the schools and see firsthand what is going on. And then our biggest challenge is the stuff that we have no control over. So when there's no water in Alex Township, or there's no water in the Eastern Cape, we are stuffed. We can't cook breakfast or lunch. And then we've got to try and get water tankers in, and it's a nightmare. When there's no gas at the schools, those schools that are on gas, there's no firewood to cook on, we've got a problem. When there's civil unrest, or there's, like 2 years ago, we had the teacher strikes and schools were closed, that is beyond our control. And that is frustrating, because some of those things, it's like, you're very frustrated because you can't fix the problem, but those are the challenges to deal with. And that's it, in a nutshell.